So today in this video, I'll just be talking about muscles of the arms and trunk. This will just be a quick little review. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is external versus internal abdominal obliques. Be careful when identifying these. You can get them easily mixed up. So you'll notice here in this picture, they're both the same picture, it's just highlighted different ones, that this section here has a lot removed. These muscles have all been removed from this side so that you can see the internal abdominal oblique. So if we start from the lateral side, so this picture has the internal abdominal oblique, and this picture has the external abdominal oblique highlighted. So if we start from the lateral side, we'll notice that as we go medial, the striations in the internal obliques go upward. Whereas if we start lateral and go medial on the external ones, the striations go downward. A couple more you'll want to know in the trunk area, quadratus lumborum, that's when this front section, everything's removed. And then this one, transverse abdominis, is fairly easy to recognize. Just know that you can't see it from this view, but you can see it from this view. This is the transverse abdominis. The sacrospinalis muscle or muscle group has the spinalis, the longissimus, and the iliocostalis, or however you want to say those. A lot of people say them totally differently than I do. So the spinalis is closest to the spine. That's how I remember that one. It's the one that's nearest to the spine, named after the spine. The next one in the middle is the longissimus, which it's hard to tell in this picture, but if you isolated this muscle group, you would see that the longissimus is definitely the longest of the three. And the last, the iliocostalis. You don't need to know the origin and insertion for this one, but it does help to know that so that you can remember how the muscle is named. So it originates at the iliac crest, hence the ilio, and then inserts all the way up here at a bunch of different ribs, thus the costalis. So iliocostalis, and that's the one that's most lateral. Next, we'll just go over the basic muscles that act on the forearm. We have the biceps brachii, brachioradialis, and the triceps brachii, which isn't in this graphic, but this here is the biceps brachii. It's a pretty obvious one. It's the biggest muscle group on this side of the arm that you'll see. And then the brachioradialis, which attaches up here and then goes all the way down and attaches to the radius or radialis. So brachioradialis. And here's just the anterior view right there because we can see the palm. Remember that when we're talking about arms, it can get tricky to remember which side's anterior, which side's posterior, but just think anatomical view is that the palms are facing anterior. You always want to remember anatomical view when you're naming these muscles because that'll help you. Sometimes a lot of muscles are named for what they attach to, what they originate from, or what they do, or things like that. This one here is the brachialis, which is easier to see from the lateral view here. But from the anterior view, it's not much of it can be seen because the biceps brachii is covering it up. So if we were to remove the biceps brachii, we could see this whole brachialis muscle, which this dotted outline shows you where that goes. And here's just the triceps brachii. Be careful not to get it mixed up with the brachialis because they're right next to each other here, and they have kind of a similar look. This is the brachialis, and this is the triceps brachii. Okay, so I cut it off. Silly of me to do so, but cut this picture off so you can't see. But the palm is down here, so the palm is facing you in this picture, which means that these are flexor muscles. So first is the flexor carpi ulnaris, which is on the ulna side of the arm. The flexor digitorum superficialis, which is what's highlighted in this photo. The palmaris longus right here. And flexor carpi radialis, which is closer to the radius. So we have the ulna and the radius, and in the middle of those is the palmaris longus muscle. And then we have the pronator teres. This is one of the muscles that's named for what it does. So pronation we learned about when we talked about movements last unit. So pronation of the hand or the arm, that muscle helps in doing that action. And then, of course, we can also see the brachioradialis in this view as well. So if we just go back quickly, brachioradialis right here, flexor carpi radialis, palmaris longus, and flexor carpi ulnaris, and then the pronator teres right there. So yeah, I guess this is a better picture to show that when the palm is facing you, when you're looking at the anterior view, you know that these are flexor muscles. And then when you see the back of the hand, those are extensor muscles, which we'll talk about in a second. So from this view, the lateral view of the arm, we can see the deltoid here, we can see the biceps brachii, the triceps brachii, and the brachialis. We can see the brachioradialis right there, and the extensor carpi radialis longus, which is what's highlighted here, and then the extensor carpi radialis brevis. So these are named because they extend the fingers, and radialis, it's near the radius bone. It's on that lateral side where the radius will be. Next is abductor pollicis longus. It's kind of hard to see the outline of this muscle, but if you just follow this arrow here, it's just kind of this big block of muscle right there. And the tendon comes down to about the start of the thumb. And extensor pollicis brevis, this little bit of muscle right there that the arrow is pointing to, and the tendon goes all the way down to the end of the thumb. And the extensor pollicis longus, which is highlighted in this photo, it's just super thin, goes all the way down to the end of the thumb. You can see it's highlighted from a bigger view here as well. So like I said a minute ago, when the back of the hand is facing you, these will be extensor muscles. They'll extend your fingers or extend your hand. So extensor digitorum, extend your fingers. It's this whole muscle right here that the arrow is pointing to. And then these tendons come down to the fingers. So the pointer finger, the middle finger, and the ring finger, those tendons all come back and attach to this extensor digitorum, or extending the digits. So extensor digiti minimi is what's highlighted in this photo. See, it goes down to the pinky finger right there. And extensor carpi ulnaris, which is on the closer to the ulna on the other side. And that's it. If you have any questions, put them in the discussion board. I'll be happy to answer those. And you can get feedback from your fellow classmates and all that. Happy studying!